Admiral Marcus Kane stood at the observation deck of the Terra's Fury, watching the Council fleet surround his small human flotilla. 50 Earth vessels against 3,000 alien warships, odds that should have meant certain annihilation. But the Council had made one critical miscalculation. They had studied humanity for decades, catalogued their weaknesses, analyzed their primitive technology. What they hadn't understood was what happened when humans had nothing left to lose. Admiral Commander Torres reported from the bridge, her voice tight with controlled fury. The Zephyrian flagship is demanding our immediate surrender. They're broadcasting on all frequencies that humanity has been designated a galactic threat and must be contained. Kane's jaw clenched. 6 months ago, humanity had been the Council's newest member, eager to join the galactic community. They had shared their technology, their culture, their hopes for a peaceful future among the stars. The Council had smiled, welcomed them, and quietly begun planning their betrayal. "Sir," came the voice of Dr. Elena Vasquez over the comm, "we're receiving encrypted transmissions from Council vessels. It appears several species are having second thoughts about this operation." Kane wasn't surprised. The Altarian Republic had always been reluctant participants in Council politics. The Vegan Collective had initially opposed humanity's membership, but had grown to respect human ingenuity. Even some Zephyrian commanders were questioning their Supreme Chancellor's orders. "Open a channel to all Council vessels," Kane ordered. It's time they learned who they're really dealing with. The communication array crackled to life, broadcasting Kane's image across the assembled fleet. His weathered face, scarred from the Titan mining wars, filled view screens on bridges throughout the enemy formation. "Beings of the Galactic Council," Kane began, his voice carrying the weight of a species pushed too far. 6 months ago, humanity came to you in peace. We offered friendship, cooperation, mutual advancement. We believed in your promise of galactic unity. On the Zephyrian flagship, Supreme Chancellor Vex Thara watched with cold satisfaction. Humans were emotional creatures, prone to speeches when they should be preparing for death. This would be over quickly. But you, Kane continued, saw us as a threat. Not because we were violent, our military was laughably primitive by your standards. Not because we were expansionist, we had barely colonized our own solar system. You feared us because we had something you had lost millennia ago. The channel fell silent, except for the hum of subspace static. We had the audacity to dream. Kane's image shifted to display footage from Earth's archives. The first human steps on Luna, the Mars colonies, the generation ships that had carried settlers to the outer worlds. Images of humans working together, building, creating, refusing to accept limitations. Your species achieved faster than light travel when mine was still throwing stones, Kane said. You mastered energy manipulation before we discovered fire. You built an empire spanning half the galaxy while we were painting on cave walls. And yet, in all your millennia of advancement, when did you last create something genuinely new? Chancellor Vex Thara's crystalline features darkened. Enough of this primitive rhetoric. All vessels, prepare to act. When did you last take a risk? Kane's voice cut through the Chancellor's orders. When did you last attempt something that might fail? When did you last dare to reach beyond what you knew was possible? The Altarian Admiral Kethmore found himself leaning forward in his command chair. The human's words struck something deep, something his people had forgotten in their centuries of comfortable stagnation. You call us a threat, Kane continued, because in 50 years, we went from chemical rockets to fusion drives. Because we solved energy problems that had stumped your scientists for generations. Because we looked at your impossible technologies and asked why not. Instead of why, Dr. Vasquez's voice crackled through Kane's earpiece. Admiral, I'm detecting power fluctuations in several Council vessels. Some of their crews are hesitating. Kane smiled grimly. You made one mistake, Chancellor Vex Thara. You thought destroying our fleet would destroy our spirit. But we're not just humans in ships, we're the species that looked at the vast emptiness of space and decided to make it our home. The first phase of humanity's response began. Every human vessel simultaneously ejected what appeared to be escape pods. The Council fleet relaxed slightly. The humans were abandoning ship, accepting defeat. But the objects weren't heading away from the battle. They were diving straight into the Council formation. What are those? Vex Thara demanded. Prometheus pods, Kane replied calmly. Each one contains a single human volunteer and enough antimatter to cripple a dreadnought. We call it ramming speed, an ancient naval tradition. The first pods struck before the Council could react. Explosions blossomed throughout their formation as volunteers who had nothing left to lose proved that humans were still capable of the impossible. But that was just the beginning. Phase 2, Kane announced, as the human fleet began broadcasting on quantum frequencies that shouldn't have been possible with their technology. You see, while you were planning our betrayal, we were learning from every species in the Council. Zephyrian quantum mechanics, Altarian energy manipulation, vegan biological engineering. You gave us the pieces, and we put them together in ways you never imagined. The human ships began to change. Hull plating shifted and flowed like liquid metal, revealing weapons arrays that mixed technologies from a dozen species. Engines that had appeared primitive suddenly blazed with exotic matter, propelling the vessels at velocities that violated known physics. Impossible, Vex Thara whispered. Those modifications would take centuries to integrate safely. Only if you're afraid to fail, Kane replied. Humans excel at catastrophic failure. It's how we learn. The tide of battle turned with shocking speed. Human vessels, outnumbered 60-1, began systematically dismantling Council formations. Not through superior firepower, but through tactics. No sane species would attempt maneuvers that risked destroying their own ships, strategies that depended on split-second timing and suicidal courage. Admiral Kethmore watched a human cruiser execute a gravity slingshot around a Council dreadnought, using the larger ship's own mass to accelerate to near light speed before ramming through 3 more vessels. By the ancestors he breathed, they're magnificent. All Council vessels, came Kane's final transmission. You have a choice. Continue this fight and face a species that considers impossible odds to be an invitation. Or stand down and learn why humanity was never the threat you needed to fear. What do you mean? Vex Thara demanded, even as her fleet began to waver. Kane's smile was cold as vacuum. You united the galaxy against us because you feared human ambition. But in doing so, you've taught us that the Council is made of cowards who destroy what they don't understand. Congratulations, Chancellor. You've created the very threat you sought to prevent. You awakened the wrong enemy. As the surviving Council vessels began to retreat, Kane turned to Commander Torres. Signal all human colonies. Operation Phoenix is now active. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you corner the species that turned a spinning rock into a garden. Torres nodded grimly. Should I inform them about our new acquisitions? Kane looked out at the drifting Council ships, many crippled but recoverable. Tell them we'll be coming home with presents. Technology, resources, and most importantly, the knowledge that we're no longer asking for our place in the galaxy. We're taking it. The Terra's Fury and her surviving escorts began their journey home, leaving behind the wreckage of the Council's certainty. They had come to destroy humanity's hope. Instead, they had forged humanity's resolve. In the depths of space, emergency beacons from Council vessels broadcasted a new message across the galaxy. Warning: humans are not what they appear to be. They are not primitive. They are not peaceful. They are the storm that follows when you mistake patience for weakness. But it was far too late for warnings. Humanity had learned the galaxy's greatest secret, that advanced civilizations were not necessarily strong ones. They had grown comfortable, predictable,